Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori. Today I am super excited because I am doing part 1 of 2 of the videos where I talk about my favorite reads of 2022. Now I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently because I just am really horrible at ranking things. I'm awful at it. It's really hard for me to rank things like a top 10 list for books or anything like that. I know that there are other booktubers who are doing kind of an awards style video wrap up instead of the ranking, and I think honestly that that's a really smart idea, and I decided to do the same thing. I'm actually splitting my awards into 2 separate videos because I am a character-driven reader. I love my characters. It's the reason I read. I love a good plot, don't get me wrong, but characters will win every single time, and the characters are usually what stand out most to me in the reads that I have during the year. So instead of ranking things and trying to tear out my hair over which book I liked over a different book, I'm instead going to give out character awards today. I have 10 different awards, and then at the end I will be awarding a character of the year for one character that has stayed with me or stuck out the most to me in all of the books that I have read. And I am so excited for this, you guys. I love talking about characters. I cannot wait. So I would love to know down in the comments below if you have some character awards that you'd like to give out for characters that you absolutely loved in your reads this year. Please feel free to put them down in the comments below so that we can all enjoy them together. Award number 1 is my favorite side character of the year. Side characters honestly don't get enough attention in so many of our books, and I think that there are so many great characters that I read this year that were not the main protagonists. The 3 that I came up with as nominees for this award were Hessa from Red's sister. There are certain things that she can't do the same way as other people can, but that doesn't hold her back, and she tries to help her friends and do the right thing and the hard thing oftentimes anyways. The second nominee for this category is Ishmael Siadi from Legacy of the Brightwash. Ishmael is completely opposite from Hessa. He is a very loud and oftentimes crude member of any society he finds himself in, but it hides a lot beneath the surface, and I really found myself appreciating both his honesty and the depth of his character. The third nominee for this category is Alkyon from the Faithful and the Fallen books. Alkyon is a warrior, he's a giant, and he has a really interesting character arc. I'm not going to say too much about him because I don't want to spoil the series for anyone who has not read it, but Alkyon's character arc was one of my favorites in this series. The winner of this category is going to be Ishmael Siadi from Legacy of the Brightwash. He is just a mess, and I appreciated him. There were definitely moments where I laughed out loud during things that he said. He had some great punchy one-liners, and I just really appreciated what he brought to this story. Next category is the character who was the biggest surprise. Now what I mean by this is a character that I did not expect to end up loving. This is a character who, as I spent more time with them through the book, they grew on me until they ended up being a character that I absolutely loved at the end of the story. The first nominee for this category is Jinnid Brazstein from Deathless Beast by Andrew D. Meredith. Jinnid is a paladin, he is a warrior, and he has run from a dark past that we find out little bits and pieces of throughout the story. He is a really fascinating character with a lot of strong, deeply held beliefs that are incredibly nuanced, and I just think that Andrew Meredith did a great job with his character. The second nominee for this category is Rohan, who is the main character from Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. This is a superhero space opera, and Rohan is another reluctant hero. Rohan is just trying to live a normal, peaceful life to get away from the past that plagues him, but the past comes knocking sooner rather than later. The third nominee for this category is Lynn from A Touch of Light by Thiago Abdallah. Lynn is a warrior who's in self-imposed exile because she did something that a lot of people are really upset at her for, and as the story goes, she grows and grows, and it was one of those things where I got to the end of the story and I didn't even realize how much I had grown to care for her character until the end of the book, and all of a sudden I realized how much I loved her character. The winner for this category is Jinnid Brazstein from Deathless Beast by Andrew D. Meredith. Jinnid is a character that I am most excited to see where his character arc goes in the next books in Andrew's series. He's just incredibly nuanced, and I really loved a couple of the reveals for him at the end of the book. So Jynid is going to walk away with my biggest surprise character of the year for 2022. Next up, we have the award for my favorite female character throughout the year. The first nominee for this category is a character that appeared in the first award, and that is Hessa from Red Sister. I absolutely loved her. She was a darling character, and I just appreciated her grit and her tenacity despite the cards that she held that life had dealt her, and I just really loved her a lot. The second nominee for this category is Itami Cho from Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. Itami Cho is basically a female samurai. She is an incredibly strong anchor character for the motley crew that she appears in, and I just absolutely could not get enough of her character throughout the book. The third nominee for this category is Bloody Anne from Priest of Bones. Bloody Anne is the kind of second in command in the motley crew that she is in, following the leader Thomas Piety. They went through the war together. Bloody Anne has an exceptional sense of loyalty, but she's also not going to be pushed around, which is something that I really appreciated about her. The winner for this category is Itami Cho from Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. Itami Cho is honestly going to be going on the list of my favorite female fantasy characters of all time. I absolutely loved her. I loved how much of a pillar of stability she was in the story, and how the other characters interacted with her and she with them, and just how she kept everything going. Basically, there were several moments where she was literally the MVP of the story, and I appreciated her character so much. All right, we're gonna take a swerve into most hated character award. Pippin says hi, by the way. Now we're gonna go into the category of most hated character award. There were several characters that fit this category during the year, but the two that really stuck out to me as nominees for this award were Lycos from The Faithful and the Fallen. Lycos is a villain who just gets worse and worse and worse, and I hated him so much. I'm not going to say a whole lot about him because I don't want to, again, spoil the books, but suffice it to say, anyone who's read Faithful and the Fallen, I'm pretty sure will completely understand why he's in this category. The second character that I'm putting in this category is actually Kathy Earnshaw from Wuthering Heights. I just recently finished Wuthering Heights, and Kathy was a character that drove me absolutely nuts. And I realized that she's not a villain, and that there are a lot of things about her that can be explained in the themes that she represents, but she was a very frustrating character for me to read. The winner of this category is easily Lycos from The Faithful and the Fallen. I am just... that was a tough one, guys. Like, he was really... Yep, if you read the series, you'll totally get why I'm saying this. Next up, I'm going to give an award for my favorite character arc through a story or series. There are two nominees for this award, one of which is Jihao from Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. Jihao is also known as the Emerald Wind. He does not play well with others. He doesn't really want to be involved in this quest, and he's constantly looking for a way out, and by the end of the book, his character has some pretty incredible growth moments, and I absolutely loved it. I'm still thinking about it. The other character that's a nominee for this is Maquin from The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. Maquin is an older character. He's a warrior that starts out protecting a young nobleman's son, and he goes through an incredible arc throughout this series. He was easily my favorite character in the series without competition, and just the things that he goes through and the way that his character grows was so powerful to read and impactful. I absolutely loved it. The winner for this category is going to be Jihao from Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. I just think that the character arc that was contained in such a small space for Jihao was incredible, and how much I was invested in his character arc made me really, really happy. I really thought it was a brilliantly done character arc, and it's easily my favorite one of the year. Next up, I have the category of most wholesome character. These characters have my whole entire heart and have me in protect mode, and I love them so much. The first nominee for this category is going to be Myron the Monk from the Rhaeria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. I talked about Myron quite a bit in my review review of the series. He is precious. He is a monk who has been secluded at a monastery his entire life. He has seen almost nothing of the outside world, and his kind of childlike discovery of the things that he was seeing was beautiful when he finally walks outside the walls of the monastery. I could not get enough of his character. I loved it so much. I would 100% read a novel just from his perspective because he was so gosh darn precious. The other character that I'm putting in this category is an old favorite of mine who I finally read in book form for the first time, and that is Johnny from the story The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Johnny is the soft-hearted boy that runs with the group of greasers, motley crew of young men in The Outsiders. He is coming from a really tough home life, but he still maintains a sense of love and loyalty for his friends, and he has some pretty incredible heroic moments in the story, and I absolutely adore him. This category I'm going to give to both characters because I could not even try to choose between Myron and Johnny, and I love them both so much. So much. I love them, love them, love them to the bottom of my heart. And so I'm going to give both of them the Most Wholesome Character Award. Next up, I'm going to do my favorite young protagonist in a fiction book that I read this year. The three characters who are up for nomination in this category are Leaf from Thrice by Andrew D. Meredith. Leaf is a young boy who has an incredible amount of magic in him, and therefore he is wanted by a lot of the nefarious powers of the world he lives in. He is protected by his adopted father, Joven, and the relationship between these two characters is really, really beautiful, and Leaf was an incredibly authentic little boy character. Next up, I have Liao Hua from Yellow Sky Revolt by Baptiste Pensant-Wu, who wrote a book about the Three Kingdoms, ancient China, and Liao Hua takes front center. He is a young boy who grows up during a revolution and sees a lot of the tumultuous wars that shaped China's early dynasties. The last one is Temujin from Chinggis Khan, Birth of an Empire, another historical fiction that follows the early years of Temujin, who would later become Chinggis Khan. This book's prose was some of the most immersive I read this year, and Temujin's just grit and growth into the ruthless Khan that he would become later on in his life was incredible to read. I'm going to give this award to Leaf from Thrice by Andrew D. Meredith, and the reason why Leaf is getting this award was because he was one of the characters that literally came off the page and showed me that the author really understands the character he's writing. Leaf is such a beautiful, sweet representation of a young boy who sees peril as adventure and is just so wholesome and beautiful, and I loved his character. Next up, I'm going to give an award for my favorite non-human character from this year's books. There are two nominees for this category, and one of them is Craft, who is the talking crow from The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. Craft was hilarious, and I loved him more and more as the series went on. He is very blunt and very kind of grumpy all the time, which was just really great, and I appreciated the comedic relief that he brought to the story. The second nominee for this category is actually going to be a space station who is sentient, and that is Wistful from Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. Wistful is an ancient space station who's been around for thousands and thousands of years, and she has such a great character to her. We hear her just in voice when she is talking to the main character, and she has a very mysterious vibe to her that I absolutely loved throughout the story. And the winner for this category is Wistful from Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. Wistful was just, I'm a big fan of sentient space station concepts anyway, and so I absolutely loved that J.C.M. Byrne really leaned into that, and Wistful was probably my favorite character, tied with Rohan, the main character from this book. So I really appreciated the character vibes that J.C.M. Byrne brought to her as a character in the story, and I look forward to reading more of her. All right, our last two categories are going to be platonic relationship and romance. My favorite platonic relationship from this year's reads There are 3 nominees for this category. The first is Royce and Hadrian from the Rhyria Revelation by Michael J. Sullivan. These two are such a great bromance. I love them so much. They are complete contrasts to each other in every way. Royce is the kind of cynical thief character, and Hadrian is the reluctant warrior hero. I am always up for a great bromance, and so Royce and Hadrian were an easy nominee for this list. The second relationship that I'm going to mention in this was Thomas Piety and Bloody Anne from Priest of Bones. Thomas Piety is a kind of returning gang boss who fought in the wars, and Bloody Anne fought alongside him, and they grew to really trust each other. And throughout the story, she comes back, she proves her loyalty over and over again, and she and Thomas just have a really good, honest relationship between the two of them that I really appreciated. The third nominee for this category is actually Maya and Adolin from Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Maya is a character who is non-human, and I'm gonna try and say this as spoiler-free as possible. Adolin has always been one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character from the Stormlight Archive. In general, I absolutely loved his character in the first 2 books especially, but his relationship with Maya, and especially a pretty major plot moment that happens toward the end of the book, just blew my mind. It was one of my favorite character moments that I read in all of 2022, and so that is why they made this list. And the award for my favorite platonic relationship from this year, by a tiny margin, goes to Maya and Adolin from the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. These two blew my mind this year. Their scene at the end of Rhythm of War I absolutely loved it. It was beautiful, it gave me chills, and I'm still thinking about it. My favorite romance of the year. Now, romance traditionally is a very difficult category for me to appreciate. I'm usually not a fan of most romances in most books. However, I did find 2 to nominate for this category this year that I really appreciated, and one of them has a spoiler for The Faithful and the Fallen, so please be aware of that and skip past this category if you don't want to know who they are. The first nominee pair is Royce and Gwen from the Rhyria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. Royce, as I mentioned, is a cynical thief, and Gwen is the owner of a brothel house, and the two of them have kind of found each other in the brokenness of life, and they just have a really beautiful arc throughout the story, and I really appreciated their romance, and it felt very mature, it felt very real, and it felt very grounded, which I really appreciated. The second nominee from The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne is Macwin and Fidel. These two, both of them go through some pretty horrific things in life and find each other much later on in their lives and bring each other an incredible amount of joy, despite the fact that the world is falling apart around them. And again, I really appreciated the maturity and authenticity of this relationship in the books, and overall I just found myself very invested in their relationship all the way up until the end of the books. The winner for this category is Macwin and Fidel from Faithful and the Fallen. These two just really have stuck with me throughout the books. They were one of the highlights of the series for me, and I just thought that their romance was beautifully done. We are finally to the end of the video, and I'm going to be giving out a Character of the Year award from the winners of the previous categories. This is a character who has just stuck with me. I am ready to go back and reread this character's arc again. This character comes from a book that I really loved this year, and the character arc was just so chef's kiss, I can't even. So, without further ado, my character of 2022 is Jihao the Emerald Wind from Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. Jihao just, again, the character arc that exists in such a short space of book. really blew my mind. I absolutely loved him, and I was so invested in his character. That being said, all of these characters, this was such a difficult list to make, and that is why I have not put this video out until now, because oh my gosh, like, it is so hard to choose between these characters. There were so many that I really loved this year, and I cannot wait to see what characters 2023 brings. I hope you guys are all enjoying your first reads of 2022. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification if you want to hang out on my corner of the internet. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you are reading 5-star reads, and I will see you in the next video.